Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. Glad you could join us. Today is a licks and tricks lesson, so I'm going to show you 3 things that will help you expand the way you approach viewing the guitar and doing things on the guitar. Always a wonderful thing, right? So let's get to it, and be sure to like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar along the way. And remember, down in the description is a link to patreon.com Outsmart Your Guitar. Click on the link. Go on over, join for free, have access to a number of lessons, check it out, give it a test drive, and then join as a full-on patron at one of 3 levels. All right? Okay, let's get to it. Normally, you would play a blues progression rocking between the 5 and the 6 like this. Right? That's quite a stretch. And then occasionally, you'd add that flat 7, right? And you can see that's really a stretch. I got to let this finger kind of come over off the fret, and I'm reaching back here. That's really a struggle. Well, now, as you'll see in the diagram, I learned this from a famous player many, many years ago. I can't remember who it was. I tried to look it up, and I just had no success in narrowing it down. I thought it was Albert King, but I'm not really sure if it was him or John Lee Hooker or one of these guys. But basically what it involves is, instead of your 1st and 3rd finger on the 5th fret of the 6th string and 7th fret of the 5th string, you take your 2nd finger on the 5th fret of the 6th string and your 4th finger on the 7th fret of the 5th string. And then, instead of playing the 6 here up at 9, you play it over here on the 4th string at 4. Right, and then just move over 1 string and do the exact same thing. So instead of the 6 here, on the 3rd string at 4, you play the 6 there. And then for the 5 chord, you just move it up 2 frets. In the 4 and the 1. Right? Pretty straightforward stuff. So go ahead and pause and get your fingers comfortable with that. Remember, I mentioned that flat 7 tone way up here. Well, you know, instead of doing it like this, we can do it the new way. Since it's just 1 fret higher than the 6, it's right there at the 5th fret on the 4th string, and you play it with your 3rd finger. Now, for the 4 chord, just move over 1 string, and you do the same thing with the 6th tone and the 7th flat 7 tone on the 3rd string at 4 and 5. And then for the 5 chord, no different. Pretty cool, huh? All right, pause and practice that for a little bit as well. Now, of course, there are a couple of variations on that. Here's one. Normally, you would play it like this. Well, now we go to the new way. And you play it with your 1st finger at 3 and 4 on the 5th string instead of 8 and 9 on the 6th string. And you can play it right up front, too. Stuff like that. It's a lot of fun when you start playing around with things a little bit, right? So I encourage you to just explore the variations and the possibilities of this new approach to playing this typical blues and rock 5 and 6 thing. Okay? I want to turn now to a really cool trick involving capos. I have my trusty shub here and my planet waves. I'm going to use the planet waves because I'm going to be showing you on an electric guitar, and my shub is more set up for the acoustic guitar, and then I'm going to show you this little beastie, and I'll talk about this in a minute. Okay? Playing in drop D can be a bit of a pain, but what it means basically is you take your E string and you drop it to D. That's drop D, literally. So you play a D chord, and now you play the open E string, which is now a D. The problem with this is, if you wanted to play a G chord, you can't play G because that doesn't work. So you have to modify to get your G to work. And E minor and even E major, you have to fret the second fret, right? And A, of course, you just leave alone. C, you can't play the low E string because, right, it doesn't work. And you can't play it open because it doesn't work. So drop D has its limitations. It's a great thing to play in, of course, but if you want to not go through the hassle of learning to play some chords differently, what you do is, whoops. Okay, what you do, and that's the other problem, is when you play a song in drop D, then you got to spend all this time tuning back up to E on the low E string, and that's a time waster. So now what we do is, here's the capo trick. We're going to play in simulated drop D, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to bring the capo across 5 strings only, and we're going to leave the 6th string open, and we're going to do this at the 2nd fret. Okay, got it. And so now, instead of playing D, we'll play D up here, but here's our root, and you have a simulated drop D. Call it drop E if you want. And the beauty of it is, since this string is not retuned, you can play the G shape, the D over F sharp shape, the full bar shape, in this case it's G, A, and this is E over G sharp now because we're in E, right? And then A, you do the normal mute, but a C chord, you can add the 6th string, right? And you still have this rich, full sound. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Let's move up 2 frets to the 4th fret. And we were playing in the D shape version of E. Now we're going to play, oops, we're going to play in the C form shape of E. Here's E, right? Again, I don't have to relearn how to play this G shape, which is now a B chord, E and B, and here, full bar is now A, right? And that's pretty cool. And then C sharp minor here, right? Just the A minor shape. Pretty cool. But there's more. So let's move this up to the 7th fret. So now you play the A shape version of E. Now, instead of muting like you normally would, open it up. And this is the drop D thing, using a regular capo, just doing it backwards. And you can do it with the shub, you can do it with the planet waves, or If you managed to pick one of these up when they were available, I don't know that they're still available. This is the Kaiser, and you'll notice that big opening there. Well, that allows the low E string to come through unclamped, just like that. And so you can see the low E string is, well, I'll get my finger around here, right? The low E string has a pass. So you can do the same thing at 2, at 4, and at 7, right? And you keep normal tuning. So if you can find one of these, grab it for your acoustic guitar. It's awesome. You don't have to worry about positioning it correctly like I did with the Planet Waves one. You just slap it on there and the low E gets a pass through. Pretty cool trick. So get your capo out and give some of this a try and see what you come up with. All right, the next trick is how to get perfect loops. Oftentimes when we're recording a loop, when you end it, there may be a little too short or a little too long, so the loop isn't in time when it starts over again. There's a very simple approach to making it happen. It's almost a, well, duh moment. However, that's why I'm here, to help you achieve the results you want when recording loops without the hassle of having to re-record them over and over. Once you get this down, you'll always have great loops. Okay, let me show you how it works, how it's done. All right, I have only the looper on camera here to make a point. So this is my playback. This is my record. So basically on this one, it's a very simple little looper. I record here and then I hit the play button when I want to stop recording. So I'll hit the record button when I want to start, and I'll hit the play button when I want to stop. The object here is I'm going to play a progression. I'm just playing a G minor, a C, an F, a B flat, and a D minor, and back to the C. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm turning down my volume from full open to around 7 or 8, depending on your guitar's gain, so that the loop is played back at a lower volume than my solo volume. Okay, so now here's the trick to getting your loops perfect. You get a metronome and you set it up. And I've got mine at, for this one, 108 beats a minute. And the first thing you do is select your progression, turn on your metronome, and play through it and get yourself stabilized playing with the metronome. And you do this a couple of times to make sure you're stable and right in time with the metronome. And then hit your record. Then, as the first chord of the progression, so when you saw me, when I hit that again, that's when I hit the play button, right on the first beat of the first part of the progression. And so now I have a perfect loop. and you hear the loop is perfectly in time. And so that's the trick. Let me show you again. Erase that. And when I play the progression through once, at the very beginning of the second loop, I'll actually play the chord as I hit the playback button to ensure that I'm right on the beat. And with the metronome going, if your loop stays in time for the most part, you made a good loop. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can hear I messed it up, so sometimes you get just a hair off. So here we go, one more time. 3, 4. And you can hear it's in time with the metronome. So that's a good loop because it stayed in time with the metronome, and that's how you do it. So give it a try. It'll also improve your rhythm keeping skills because you're working with a metronome. Okay, there you go. A cool lick and a couple of tricks for you there. And this is stuff that you really want to know and you want to embrace and experiment with. Doing your blues rhythms in a much easier way is always much more desirable, right? Having options available to you. I want to play in the key of E, but I don't want to just do it in first position. For example, the drop D capo trick gets you out of your comfort zone, gets you playing stuff a little different, and it has a different sound, makes it more unique, more original to you, right? And then getting perfect loops. Yes, you have to know how to work with a metronome to make that work, but it's always a good thing to work with a metronome, and using the metronome gets you perfect loops, all right? So I won't belabor that point. Just work with a metronome regularly and the loops will start to come together quickly. Once you learn this idea with getting the loops together, using a metronome, and getting your timing of hitting that playback button to complete the loop, and then when you listen back to it, if it stays in time with the metronome, you know you got a perfect loop, all right? Okay, that'll do for this lesson. Until next time, you take care, and we'll see you there.